In Alberta, some of the things the provincial government did made things worse. This one sticks out, okay? This is the 5-year cumulative change in the electricity component of the Consumer Price Index in Canada, and no relationship whatsoever. Alberta's living in another universe than the rest of Canada. Why? Because we've got a government that has pursued the most bizarre, fragmented, irrational, internally contradictory energy policy that you can imagine. They're still trying to blame it on Rachel Notley and phasing out coal. It's got nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. It's all about this bizarre faith in the ability of a fragmented market composed of utility companies who are smart. The utility companies know in this so-called instantaneous market clearing system that we have in Alberta, if I cut back supply, I can jack up the price and make more money. That's what's happening here. Then when the provincial government comes in and says we're not going to build any more renewable capacity, okay, to have some kind of dog whistle point, the rest of the world is building renewable capacity as fast as they can, not just because it's clean, because it's freaking cheap. It's cheaper than any other form of energy, any other form of electricity for a new generation. And we're going to say, no, well, we're not doing that because it's anti-oil, so we're not going to do it. And I'm going to rev up my base by saying that we're not going to build any of those fucking windmills or anything else. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. And the evidence is right there. And this surge in electricity prices in Alberta was significant enough that it lifted the Canada-wide inflation rate, okay? Lifted the Canada-wide inflation rate, which the Bank of Canada looked at when they set interest rates. It is fair to say that interest rates here and everywhere else are higher in small part because of this, okay? That is an absolutely legitimate connection to make. Self-inflicted wound number one. Self-inflicted wound number two, auto insurance, okay? By many measures, it's hard to measure this, but by many measures, Alberta has now the highest auto premiums in Canada, and by absolute hard evidence, the fastest growing auto premiums in Canada, up 38%, more than twice the national rate of increase over the last 5 years. Gosh, look at what's that thing on the right-hand side? Down 7% in BC, what? Oh, the province with a public auto insurance company that runs a service rather than a profit gouging operation. Okay, well, we'll think about that one too. Tuition fees. Cutbacks to university funding in Alberta have been wicked for a province that claims to be thinking about innovation and everything, and the universities have responded to that by increasing tuition faster than any other province. And by the way, tuition fees are in the Consumer Price Index. That is part of inflation. Part of the user fees that governments charge for services, whether it's getting on the bus or going to university, shows up in the inflation rate. And in this regard, if a government actually cared about inflation, they would cut those fees, not increase them. But Alberta's been going the wrong way. Another one is the rents. The housing costs, of course, are very hard to get a handle on. Lots of things happening. The increased interest rates, of course, increased the debt charges on mortgages. They've also undermined supply of new housing, construction of new housing, which we need more of, by the way, given our population growth, is shrinking. That's perverse. But that's on the Bank of Canada's blame sheet, not the Alberta government's. But Alberta could do something about rents. Many other provinces have rent controls or protections for renters. Alberta has none. It's all up to the free market, and lo and behold, rents are growing faster here than any other province. So for all of these reasons, there's no Alberta advantage on the cost of living side. This is a measure of the actual cost of living, the absolute level of the cost of living. So how much does it actually cost? It's different than the inflation rate. So the inflation rate has been the same in Alberta as other provinces, but the actual cost of living is higher. By cities, ranked by cities, Calgary is number 2, just behind Vancouver, and ahead of Toronto. That's surprising, that it actually costs more to live in Calgary than it costs to live in Toronto. Edmonton is number 4, ahead of all those other places, including Ottawa, where fat cat public servants who've never worked a day in their life in the private market, like Pierre Poilievre, for example, okay, they all live in Ottawa. Ottawa's not a cheap place to live. Edmonton's more expensive than Ottawa. And remember my Alberta Advantage chart that showed the wage was 3% higher than it is in the other provinces. So skill testing economics question, okay? This is why I studied economics for 10 years. at this fine university and 2 others, if your wages are 3% higher and your cost of living is 8% higher, are you better off? No fucking way are you better off, right? That's the answer.